Good afternoon and welcome to 5 Steps to Massive Results for Your Business. Whenever I speak to somebody about their business and they want to grow their profits and make it more successful and add extra capability, have more time off, etc., their first reaction is, oh, well, if I want to grow a business, I have to do lots of marketing. And although there is an element of truth in that, the reality is that marketing is the most expensive part of actually tweaking your business to make it grow faster. So what I want to introduce you to today is a 5 ways process that we use within the Action Coach process, which is about breaking down the format of the business. And what I can demonstrate with this is if we look at the separate stages of what happens, I can talk about examples of what you can do to improve the results in your business from doing that. So if we look initially at the process, we start off and we have a number of leads. Now, if you say you want to grow a number of leads, the most obvious thing is to go out and spend money with a marketing company and viz, you should get more leads. In reality, of course, that doesn't always work as smoothly as that. So let's look at it this way. Let's talk about a couple of examples. I had one small store and it was coming up, it was November, and they said, we always have a problem with advent calendars. And we always end up with a stock of them which don't go. And of course, once you're in December, the chance of getting rid of it is pretty slim. So we said, well, where have you got them? Said, well, they're just in the display, with the cards and everything else. So we said, okay, what happened if you moved them and you put them on the cash till? So I said, okay, it's worth a try. So they moved them onto right next to the cash till. So while people were queuing up to pay, the advent calendar was stood next to them. They sold out by the middle of November. It's increasing the number of leads you're getting because you are standing everybody who comes through that store in front of the product. Another more graphic example. If you imagine a shopping centre and people walk through a shopping centre and you have different shops and you have the displays in here and you can stand and you can watch people as they walk past, and you will even see if you watch them that where the floor changes from being the precinct floor to being the shop floor, they will stand here and they will look at the product. But they have this psychologically, they're thinking about it, well, if I don't go into the shop, then I won't get pestered by the shop assistant. So we looked at this with the people we were coaching. Said, well, okay, well, let's think about this a little bit more detail. The problem is a psychological one. They're not coming into the store because they're seeing that as a threat, that they're going to get challenged. So what we did was we spoke to the landlord in the shopping centre and said, can we extend our floorway out into the walkway? And they got permission to do it. So what you then had was people walking along and they would just naturally end up walking on the carpet because they were walking a straight line. Once they were there, they would walk more into the store. They found their footfall increased by 15%. And in stores, that's generally, there's a counter as people go through the opening into the entrance, into the store. 15% more people. So when you think about this situation, if you're increasing the number of leads, it's not always as simple not always the only way of doing it is investing in marketing. It's actually thinking outside the box and thinking, what else can we do? There's lots of ways that you can increase the number of leads. They're not all about placing another advert. So there's a couple of ideas for you there on lead generation. Now the next one is conversion rate. Now, from lots of years in sales and my experience in coaching, what I'm going to say is people get busy. So let's avoid any criticism here. Your sales team have a big pile of inquiries they're going to work their way through, and their process when they're sat at the desk is, if I can get through them and send the quote out, that pile goes away, they're dealt with. The problem is with this, of course, that if you're a customer and you inquire about something and you get two quotes come through, company A and company B. Now, company A, you get a phone call and they say, "Oh, Mr. Betts, that was great. We sent you through the quotation. Just wanted to check that we'd understood your requirements correctly and whether you understood our range of what we do and whether we could actually do a better fit for what you require." Company B, same price, similar looking product as far as I'm concerned, but I don't get a call. All things being equal, which one do you think I'm going to buy from? So the learning here is, one of the easy ways that you can up your conversion rate is to have a process, a system in your sales department which says, I quoted this job on day 1. By day 3 or day 2, depending on how fast moving your product is, I call them and say, was that okay? Did I get everything there that you asked for? And if I didn't, you've got a chance then to refine it. But more importantly, you've started to get a relationship with that person. Opens a door to you. So the second one then is about following up again. So these two numbers of leads and the conversion rate, if you multiply them together, that will be the number of customers you have. And usually speaking, you do this over a 12-month period. So leads conversion rate equals number of customers. Now, interestingly enough, most people will know how many customers they've got, but they won't know how many leads they got or what their conversion rate is. These are critical numbers that affect your business. You should know these numbers. These are the 2 of the 5 ways. So once we've got the number of customers, the next thing is how many times do they buy from you? And I say we're talking about a year here, but it can be any period you like. And the story for this one. In America, on average, people buy a new car every 2 years. And an average salesman sells between 7 and 9 cars a month. And this guy called Joe Girard was the top selling car salesman in America for many years. He's now retired, but he was the number 1 salesman in all the charts. And Joe was selling between 20 and 25 cars every single month. So significantly higher than the average. And what he realised fairly early on was that when you buy a car and you get the relationship with the salesman and you pick the one you want and all the options, you drive it out the showroom and you never speak to him again. 2 years down the road, you probably don't even remember their name when you come to get another car. But you think, oh, I've had a Ford or whatever you've had that year. I'm going to try something different this year. So you don't even bother going back in the Ford garage. You tend to go around the other ones and look at those because you feel you know the Ford because that's what you've got. So Joe thought, hang on a minute, the problem here is the chance of me selling another car to that person within 2 years is pretty slim. But what I need to do is to keep in contact. So he came up with a scheme which worked really well. And he said, right, okay, I'm selling you this car. What I'd like to do is just keep in touch with you. So he used to take their wedding anniversaries, their birthday. He knew Thanksgiving, in their case, Christmas, knew Easter. All these different events, he would aim to try and get 12 events a year. His whole principle being, every month he'd send them a card saying congratulations or whatever for the event. Over the year, they'd get 12 cards. Rule of thumb here is, if you don't speak to your customers every 3 months, they forget who you are. So he was well and truly hitting that with doing it every month. And of course, by the time he reached the end of the 2-year period, when they were looking for another car, he'd sent them 24 cards at a cost about $1. So for an investment of $24, they still knew who Joe Girard was. So what they do then is they say, right, we need to go and get another car, but Joe did us a good deal last time, he looked after us. We'll just pop in and let him know that we're looking at cars. We're not going to buy another car from him because we want something different. Now, as soon as Joe got them in front of him, he could show them all the new things that the new cars had got that theirs one hadn't. He had an opportunity to sell. Without that relationship, they just walked into the other dealers and made another selection and went round the loop again. So very powerful. How often do you keep in touch with your existing customers? It's so easy, particularly if you sell a high value product, to forget to keep in touch. So that's number of transactions. The next one is average value sale. How can you increase the value of the order that you're going to buy? And this one, to be perfectly honest, I always come back to when you go into McDonald's. McDonald's have an upsell for everything. So if you go in and say you want a Big Mac, do you want fries with it? You want a Big Mac meal, do you want that large? If you want a large Big Mac meal, do you want an apple pie with it? They have got all these different upsells. Interesting enough, one of my colleagues was actually a franchise agent for McDonald's. 80% of people, when asked, would you like it large, say yes. How much does that cost for a bit more coffee in the cup and a few more chips? An easy win. So you can add the value by simple upgrades. It's not going to be a huge amount, but they can be items that have cost you very little to sell, and actually a lot of these small things don't actually have a high cost in themselves. So that would be average value sale. So now let's look at the equation where we're at now. So we've got number of customers times how often they buy from you times the average value sale gives us the business turnover. And now what we're looking at is numbers you tend to know, the turnover, number of customers, and the numbers you don't, most people don't tend to know, number of leads, the conversion rate, number of transactions, and average value sale. We're starting to build a model of the business. The next one is margin. How much do we put on top of our costs, which obviously reflects our profit? So the final one on this is actually going to be the profit. Now, the tip for the margin every single time has to be, when did you last put your prices up? And by how much did you put them up? Pretty much without exception, all my years in coaching, everybody said, oh, can't increase our prices, we're so price critical. So I say to them, that's interesting. So tell me, have your electric suppliers ever put their bill up? Well, yeah, I think they put it up every year. So how often do you shop round for another electric supplier because your suppliers put their prices up by 2 or 3%? Oh, it's only 2 or 3%. Now here's the crux of it. So people will say to me, oh no, I can't put the prices up. And you say, well, when did you last put your prices up? And they have to go away and check. Oh, that was 5 years ago. Now you think about, if that every year for 5 years they'd increased it by 2 or 3%, the increase on their profit by that time would be huge, because that is over and above all the costs have been taken out. So just a small tweak to that, something like that, where you add a couple of percent, most people in most markets will never ever notice. And in all the years I've been in coaching, and everybody I've got to increase their prices, they have never had a kickback. And if you do, you're going to get one customer who you then question as to whether they're actually an ideal customer for you. You've got a choice. You can either discount the price back down again, or you say, no, that's our new price structure, because our prices have gone, the products have gone up. All these things justify us going up with the prices. So this one is the easiest win. To be honest, it doesn't matter too much the orders you go in here. This is always the most expensive. This is generally the easiest. Then you can do the ones in the middle. But they will all have an impact on the business, and that's where we want to go next. So let's take this to the next level. These are the 5 ways, just to put it. Number of leads, the conversion rate, number of transactions, average value sale, and the margin. So that's all very well and good, lots of talking. Now let's try and make these mean something to you. Let's put some numbers in. Let's look at a reasonably small business, but it makes it simple to actually understand. So we've got this small business, and they get 4,000 leads, and we'll say this is in a year, and they convert 25% of them. So 25% times 4,000, they have 1,000 customers. Each of those customers buy from them 2 times a year, and on average, they spend £100. So your turnover, it's multiplying those together, their turnover is 200,000. Their margin, 25%, hence 25% by 200,000, their profit is £50,000. A nice little business. So what is the next question? So this is the so what. When I coach with somebody, the underlying figure that I work to get them to try and achieve minimum is 10%. Now, interestingly, when I start talking to them about, well, okay, all these ideas we could use for actually increasing the conversion rate or the average value sale, they come back with loads of ideas. And most of the time, they won't say, oh yeah, we can increase that by 10%. So if you look at the 4,000, they won't say, oh, well, you know, we could probably add 1,000 or 2,000 to that. And you talk about the number of trans, oh, well, that would be 3 or 4. So most people, when asked, without prompting, will be thinking far bigger than 10%. I know if I do 10%, I can give them great value. But we'll come back to what happens if you put the extra mileage in to get even better than that in a moment. So if we increase by 10%, the 4,000 becomes 4,400, and the 25% becomes 27.5%. And when you look at this and you say to yourself, actually, is that difficult to achieve? If you look at this example here, 15% increase in people going into the store, that's one simple thing that they've done. There's nothing to do with positioning the product near the till, like the advent calendars, all those sort of things. Conversion rates. Again, we're going up from 25, 27.5. It's a small amount. It's about the detail. It's not major changes to the way you're running a business. So now, instead of being 4,000 by 25% giving 1,000, we compound it. It's 4,400 minus 27.5%. We've got 1,210 customers. So actually, we're 20%, 21% up on last year's numbers now. So let's carry on. Number of transactions from 2 to 2.2. Average value sale from 100 to 110. So now, we're 1,210 times 2.2 times 110 gives us a turnover of 292,000. We've added 92,000 onto that business's turnover. Continuing this through, increase the margin from 25% to 27.5, gives us a profit of £80,525. An extra £30,000, okay, in your business. What would you do with an extra £30,000 in your business? And this is only a business which has been turning over £200,000. It's not a big business. Bottom line here, for you to scale it for your business, 46% increase in your turnover and 61% increase in your profitability. That's with increasing everything by 10%. Just 10%. Now, I could do you an example and say, what if we doubled all those numbers? But to be honest, what I find is the numbers get so mind-blowingly big that everybody just dismisses it. So let's try and do this a bit more realistically. As I've already said, most people will actually look at the numbers when I give them to say how much could we increase that by, and they will come up with fairly big multiples. So let's go from 10%, let's go to 25%. So this is our original numbers, but now we're going to put a 25% increase. Okay, so we're going to add another 1,000 leads in there. It becomes 5,000. We're going to put 25% on the conversion rate. So we're going to become 31.25. And these numbers compound together. So instead of 1,000, we're now looking at 1,562 customers. Number of transactions, 2, increases to 2.5. The average value sale increases from 100 to 125. Turnover increases from 200 to 488,000. That's nearly 150% increase on the turnover. Margin, 25 to 31.25. Profits here from 50,000 up to 152,000. If you could treble your profits in your business, what difference would that make? And we're not looking at huge changes. We're looking at clever changes. So this is the power of the 5 ways process. This is why this is core to the coaching that I do with every client. Because if they don't do this, they're missing a huge opportunity. Whatever else we want to do in the business is most likely going to require money. This is how we make it. So it's a simple way of introducing it. Now, the thing is with this, the biggest reason why people don't act on these things is fear of change. Like I say, increasing the prices. Most people are fearful that if they increase their prices, they're going to lose the business. They don't ask the next logical question as, well, what's the worst that can happen? I have to bring them back down again. I had a business which was brick cutting, and they did specialist work, and they did some beautiful restoration work. And I said to them, well, how much do you charge for the restoration work as opposed to just cutting bricks up? They said, well, we just have an hourly rate. Oh, that's interesting. So all this fancy work, this really clever stuff, you're charging the same hourly rate. Yeah, it takes longer, but right. So who have you got competes with you on that? Oh, well, there's a little guy up north somewhere which does something, but in all honesty, what we do is fairly specialist. So we put a sizable increase. We put the specialist cutting side up by 20% because they hadn't put it up for years. They didn't get one query over pricing. So 6 months later, we put them up again. And actually, within the space of about 12 months, we'd actually doubled the price on them. And nobody had quibbled it. And the biggest win was actually that when you started to increase the prices and you got more kudos in the market, what happened then was the big developers who wanted to put something fancy onto their houses said, oh, actually, they're a good player. We'll go and actually buy some product from them. So they'd buy these fancy cut arches and things to make their houses look special. And they just say, oh, we want 10,000 bricks cut in half. Can you cut 10,000 bricks? They weren't even competing on the simple stuff because they said, oh, do these as well. We know you can do it. Can you just run these through for us? So there was a double win on that. And it's all to do with mindset. So when you come to these decisions about what you can do, face the fear and ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? Because invariably, it's not disastrous. I mean, don't do stupid things. Don't double your prices because that will make people stand up. But you can keep tweaking them. And if you don't get a bad reaction to it, it probably means you could have gone further. Bear that in mind. As far as what do people actually achieve? I was a company a few years ago I worked with, and it had been turning over 1.8 million, and they'd done lots of work to try and grow it, and they got it from 1.8 to 2.1 million. But the trouble was they made no more money, so they were putting more work in, but they weren't making any more profit. So when we started working them, we looked at what they were doing, and we looked at their market and the way that they're presenting themselves, and we reviewed their sales and their marketing strategy basically from scratch. We took them through a growth pattern of 63%. We took them from 2.1 to 3.4 million in 12 months. That's textbook basically of going through the numbers that we've just spoken about by the 10% increase. It's not a tiny company, it's doing it with a larger company. It doesn't matter the size of the business. you can do this with all different sized businesses. So it's an easy win. So really in close at this stage, we are in uncertain times. Lots of volatility is in the market, and with that volatility there's going to be uncertainty from people who whether they're going to buy or not, and lots of people will actually put off making the purchase. If you're going to be dynamic in this market, if you're going to stand out, if you're going to be the one that people buy from, now is your opportunity, because most people will sit there and do nothing wondering what's going to happen next. The winners will be the ones that go out there and do something different, because they will get the business. If you can win market share in a depressed market, when it grows, you actually win twice over, because that market share will grow proportional to the increase in the market. So this 5 ways, the most valuable tool for making money in your business. That's the principle. Love to see how you get on. Also, love your feedback on this event. Let me know what you think of it, and wish you all the best in your business. All the best for the future. Thanks very much.